The Young and the Restless spoilers. For weeks, fans of The Young and the Restless have been asking the same question: where is Allie Gwynn? Ever since Noah's accident and the growing mystery surrounding his secrets, her absence has felt almost eerie, as though the story were waiting for her to reappear at the worst possible moment. And now, she finally will. But the woman returning to Genoa City is not the same hopeful, bright-eyed girl who once dreamed of building a life with Noah. The Allie who comes home has seen too much, lost too much, and carries a heartbreak that no one in the Abbott family can ignore. When Nick and Sharon begin asking Noah about her, the tension is palpable. It starts innocently enough, Sharon wondering whether Allie is still in London, Nick casually asking if she's coming back for the wedding planning they'd heard so much about. But Noah's response is immediate and evasive. His voice tightens, his smile falters. "She's busy," he says too quickly. "We're giving each other space." It's a lie that lands heavy in the room. Sharon's maternal instincts kick in instantly, she can feel that something's wrong. Nick, meanwhile, watches his son carefully, realizing that the distance between Noah's words and his truth has grown too wide to ignore. It doesn't take long for word to reach the Abbotts that Allie has returned to town. She arrives quietly, her luggage in one hand and a storm of emotions in the other. The sparkle that once defined her has dimmed. Her eyes, once full of warmth and curiosity, are now shadowed with exhaustion. The engagement ring is gone. When Jack opens the door of the Abbott mansion and sees her standing there, his heart sinks. "Allie," he says softly, but she doesn't answer right away. For a long moment, she just stands there, tears brimming, before she finally collapses into his arms. What follows is one of the most heartbreaking conversations Jack Abbott has had in years. In the privacy of his study, Allie tells him everything: the truth about Noah's betrayal, the lies, the affair with Sienna Bacall. Each word cuts deeper than the last. Jack listens in stunned silence, struggling to reconcile the image of Noah Newman, the kind, steady young man who once made his granddaughter so happy, with the man she's describing now. "He cheated on me," Allie whispers, her voice breaking. "With a married woman. Someone older. Someone who knew exactly what she was doing." Her hands tremble as she speaks, the weight of humiliation and heartbreak spilling out in waves. "I loved him, Grandpa. I gave up everything for him. And he threw it all away for her." Jack's chest tightens with fury. He's spent his life protecting his family, especially the younger ones who've inherited not just the Abbott name but its curse, loving too deeply and trusting too easily. Seeing Allie so broken reignites a rage he hasn't felt in years. "He used you," Jack says, his voice low but trembling with emotion. "He took your heart and made a fool out of you." Allie shakes her head. "He didn't mean to," she says softly, still trying to defend the man who destroyed her. "He just changed. After the accident. After Los Angeles." That name, Los Angeles, stops Jack cold. It's the same city tied to the rumors about Noah's nightclub, the same place where whispers of scandal had started. He realizes that this isn't just about infidelity, it's about deception on a much larger scale. "Who is this woman?" he demands. Allie hesitates, her lips quivering. "Sienna Bacall," she says finally. The name alone is enough to send a shock through him. Jack knows that name, a socialite with a reputation for manipulation and scandal, a woman whose marriage to Mitch Bacall has been tabloid fodder for years. The idea that Noah would risk everything for someone like her is almost unthinkable. When Allie finishes her story, the room falls silent except for her quiet sobs. Jack rises slowly from his chair, every muscle in his body trembling with restrained anger. "He broke your heart," he says, his voice cracking. "And he's going to answer for it." Allie looks up, alarmed. "Grandpa, please don't," but Jack has already made up his mind. "No, Allie. He doesn't get to walk away from this. He doesn't get to hurt you and pretend it never happened." He leaves before she can stop him, his footsteps echoing down the hall like thunder before a storm. At the hospital, Noah is resting when the door bursts open and Jack Abbott storms in. The room seems to shrink instantly under the weight of Jack's fury. Sharon and Nick, who had been sitting quietly nearby, jump to their feet. "Jack, what are you doing?" Sharon asks, but Jack barely hears her. His eyes are locked on Noah, cold, burning, unrelenting. "You and I are going to talk," he says. Noah, startled and still weak from recovery, tries to stand. "Jack, what's going on?" But Jack doesn't give him time to breathe. "Don't you dare play innocent with me," he snaps. "You know exactly what this is about." Nick steps in, trying to defuse the situation, but Jack's rage is volcanic. "She came to me, Noah. My granddaughter. The woman you promised to love. The woman who left her life behind to build one with you. And what did you do? You betrayed her, for a married woman. For Sienna Bacall." The name hits the room like an explosion. Sharon gasps softly, realization dawning in her eyes. Noah's face pales, his mind spinning. "Jack, please," he starts, but Jack cuts him off. "Don't lie to me. Don't you dare lie to me again. You don't deserve to say her name." Nick grabs Jack's arm, trying to pull him back, but Jack shakes him off. "You raised him to be better than this," he says bitterly. "Is this what a Newman man does? Breaks hearts and ruins lives?" The words sting more than Noah expected. He looks down, unable to meet Jack's eyes. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he says softly. "It was a mistake." But even as he says it, the words feel hollow. Jack laughs bitterly. "A mistake? You call destroying my granddaughter's heart a mistake?" For a long moment, no one speaks. The air is thick with tension, with anger and disappointment that years of family rivalry have only made more potent. Sharon finally steps forward, her voice trembling. "Jack, please. He's still recovering. This isn't helping." But Jack's pain is too raw to stop. "You don't understand," he says quietly. "She looked me in the eye and told me she still loved him even after everything he did. Do you know what kind of pain that is?" His voice cracks, and for the first time, his anger gives way to grief. "I can't watch her suffer like that again. Not because of another Newman." Noah's guilt overwhelms him. He can't meet Jack's gaze. The truth, the whole, ugly truth, is out now, and there's no way to take it back. He sees his father's disappointment, his mother's heartbreak, and Jack's fury, and for the first time, he realizes the magnitude of what he's done. He's not just broken Allie's heart, he's fractured the fragile peace between two families that had barely begun to heal. As Jack storms out, Sharon turns to her son, her eyes glistening with tears. "What have you done, Noah?" she whispers. But Noah has no answer. He sits there, staring at the floor, the silence between them louder than any words. Later that night, Jack finds Allie sitting by the fire, her eyes red from crying. He doesn't tell her about the confrontation, but she can see the remnants of anger in his expression. "Did you talk to him?" she asks quietly. Jack nods. "Yes," he says. "And I don't think he'll ever forget it." Allie looks away, her voice barely audible. "I just wanted him to love me," she says. Jack takes her hand gently. "You deserved so much more than what he gave you," he says. "And I promise you, you're going to be okay." But in Genoa City, promises like that rarely hold. Because while Allie tries to rebuild, Noah is left drowning in regret, and Sienna Bacall, the woman who started it all, is still out there. And when she returns, the storm that destroyed one love might be the same one that brings down two families. The silence inside the hospital corridor shattered the moment Jack Abbott's voice echoed down the hall, sharp and trembling with rage. The usually composed patriarch was no longer the man of reason, he was a storm barely contained in human form. Nurses turned as he passed, their faces pale with confusion, because it wasn't often that Jack lost control, but this wasn't business, and it wasn't rivalry. This was family. This was blood and heartbreak. When he burst into Noah Newman's hospital room, the sight of the young man lying in bed, calm, bruised, and silent, was too much to bear. All the fury he'd been holding since Allie's tearful confession came flooding to the surface. Noah barely had time to lift his head before Jack's fist collided with his face. The sound, the brutal crack of knuckles meeting bone, cut through the sterile air like a gunshot. Sharon screamed, nurses rushed forward, but Jack's voice drowned them all out. "Why, Noah," he shouted, trembling with fury and grief. "Why did you betray her?" Blood ran down Noah's lip, the sting of the blow nothing compared to the guilt already tearing him apart. He didn't fight back. He didn't even raise his hands. He just sat there, dazed, his eyes filled with a hollow sadness. "Jack, stop!" Sharon cried, grabbing his arm, but Jack shook her off. "You don't get to tell me to stop," he barked, his voice breaking. "You didn't see what she looked like, Sharon. You didn't see my granddaughter fall apart because of this liar." Noah's voice cracked as he tried to speak. "I never meant to hurt her," he said weakly, but Jack's fury only deepened. "You didn't mean to? You think that makes it better?" Jack's entire body trembled as decades of frustration and loss spilled out at once. "You Newmans think you can do whatever you want, take, destroy, and walk away like it means nothing. Well, not this time. Not with her." Before anyone could intervene, the door burst open again, and chaos erupted. Sienna Bacall appeared in the doorway, her expression torn between terror and defiance. "Stop it," she shouted, her voice shaking. "Stop this right now." Her arrival only made things worse. Sharon's eyes widened, recognizing the woman who had destroyed her son's engagement, and Jack turned toward her with disbelief. "You," he hissed. "You have the nerve to come here?" Sienna raised her hands defensively. "I came to stop this, Jack." "He's hurt, he's not," but she didn't get to finish. Behind her, Allie had entered quietly, her face pale and eyes wet with fresh tears. The moment she saw Sienna, the air seemed to crackle with tension. "You," Allie said, her voice trembling. "You don't belong here." The words were quiet, but they carried the weight of all her pain. Sienna turned toward her, guilt and anger warring across her face. "Allie, please," but before reason could intervene, the emotions that had been simmering for months finally boiled over. Allie stepped forward, her tears turning to fury. "You ruined everything," she said. "You took the man I loved and made him lie, made him betray me." Sienna shook her head. "You think I forced him? You think he didn't want it?" The venom in her voice was a mistake, one that turned heartbreak into war. In an instant, Allie lunged forward, her hand striking Sienna's face with a sharp slap that echoed through the room. Gasps erupted from everyone, but Sienna didn't back down. She grabbed Allie's arm, shoving her back. "Don't you dare act like you're innocent," she snapped. "He came to me. He kissed me." That was enough to break the fragile control that had been holding Allie together. What followed was chaos. A tangle of tears, shouting, and desperate hands as the two women collided in an explosion of grief and fury. Sharon screamed for help, nurses rushed in, but it was too late. Allie swung again, the pain of betrayal blinding her, while Sienna tried to push her away, her own emotions unraveling. "You ruined him," Allie cried. "You destroyed the best part of him." Sienna's eyes flashed with something between rage and sorrow. "He was already broken," she spat, "long before I touched him." Jack tried to separate them, his anger now mixed with horror at how far everything had spiraled. "Enough," he shouted, pulling Allie back, but the damage was already done. The perfect image of his family's composure was gone, replaced by raw, unfiltered chaos. Sharon stood frozen, her hands trembling, unable to process what she was seeing, her son bleeding and silent, the woman who destroyed him fighting with the girl he destroyed. And then, just as the room seemed to teeter on the edge of madness, a new voice cut through the noise, low, powerful, commanding. "That's enough. Nick Newman's voice carried the weight of authority and fury, and when he stepped into the room, everyone froze. The chaos stopped as if the world itself had obeyed him. His presence filled the space, tall, steady, his expression carved from steel. "Jack," he said, his tone sharp as glass, "get out." Jack turned, still breathing hard, his anger far from spent. "Don't you tell me to leave," he snapped. "Your son." But Nick's voice boomed, louder this time, darker. "I said get out." The command left no room for argument. For a moment, the two men stared at each other, two fathers, two leaders, both broken in different ways. Jack's hands clenched into fists again, but he could see in Nick's eyes that this wasn't a battle he could win. "Not here. Not now." "You protect him like he's some innocent child," Jack growled. "But you know what he is. You raised him to be just like you, full of charm and lies." Nick's jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to the bait. "You don't come into my son's hospital room and lay a hand on him," he said coldly. "You're lucky I don't have you thrown out of here myself." The silence that followed was suffocating. Sienna stood in the corner, shaking, her hair disheveled, her cheek red from the fight. Allie was sobbing quietly against the wall, her heart too shattered to speak. Sharon stood between them all, her face pale, torn between maternal instinct and exhaustion. Noah sat motionless, his lip bleeding, his mind spinning. He didn't know what hurt more, the pain in his face or the look of disappointment in his father's eyes. Finally, Jack turned away, his anger dimming into something closer to sorrow. He looked at Allie, his expression softening for a brief moment. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently. "You don't need to see any more of this." Allie hesitated, glancing back at Noah one last time, her tears catching the light. For a moment, their eyes met. Two people bound by love and destroyed by it. Then she turned and followed Jack out. When the door closed behind them, the room fell into an uneasy stillness. Nick turned to his son, his voice softer now but no less firm. "You need to start telling me the truth," he said. "All of it." Noah looked up slowly, his voice hoarse. "You think I haven't paid enough already," he whispered. Nick sighed, his anger fading into something deeper, disappointment. "No, son," he said quietly. "The bill for what you did hasn't even come due yet." Sienna, still standing by the window, wiped at her tears. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," she murmured. "I just wanted to make sure he was okay." Sharon turned to her, her voice steady but cold. "You've done enough," she said. "For all of us." Sienna flinched at the words, her confidence finally breaking. She looked at Noah, the man who had promised her something he couldn't keep, and saw only regret. Without another word, she left, the echo of her heels fading down the hall like the aftermath of a storm. Nick ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion washing over him. Sharon placed a hand on his arm, her voice trembling. "This has to stop, Nick," she whispered. "Before someone gets hurt even worse." Nick nodded but didn't answer. His gaze drifted back to his son, broken, bleeding, and surrounded by the wreckage of his own choices. In another part of the hospital, Jack walked beside Allie, his fury replaced by quiet heartbreak. "I shouldn't have gone there," he admitted. "But I couldn't stand knowing what he did to you." Allie shook her head, her voice fragile. "It's not your fault," she said. "It's mine. I should have seen who he really was." Jack stopped, turning to her. "Don't ever blame yourself for someone else's betrayal," he said. "You gave him love. He gave you pain. That's on him, not you." But even as he said it, Jack couldn't shake the unease in his chest. Something about all of this felt unfinished, unresolved, as though Noah's betrayal was only part of a much darker truth waiting to surface. And somewhere down the hall, behind the closed door of a hospital room filled with broken hearts and unspoken secrets, Noah sat alone, staring at the blood on his hands, wondering when, or if, he would ever be able to wash it away. Because in the young and the restless, guilt is never temporary, and pain is never silent. It lingers, it festers, and it always, inevitably, comes back to finish what it started.